Hey everybody, Austin here. And now, as of the time of recording this, we're in the month of November, which means the year is almost over and time has really flown by. And so, with this in mind, I figured I'd take it upon myself to look back at my third year of making videos. In this case, the year was 2022 when I was making a lot of these videos in my third year. I figured I'd take a moment to sort of look back and reflect upon really just where I was, because that was actually my favorite year of doing those videos, because there was just a lot that I really wanted to talk about, and it's also sort of what would become also lay the groundwork for what would become the pattern of a lot of the videos I'm doing right now, a lot of the movie reviews. And so, I figured I'd take a look back and around this time, because this is around the time when things were opening back up, things were mostly going back to normal, and people were going back to the theater. Either to see the second Avatar film, which had been long in development for over 2 decades. It's hard to believe that the Avatar right now is 15 years old, and Avatar The Way of Water came out 13 years ago at that time. And really, it was just a good year for me to make videos. It was a lot of fun. So, let's look back on some of those videos, including my favorite one to work on. The first TV show review that clocked in at an hour, which in the following review I would joke that I ran at the same length as Lady and the Tramp, Tiny Toon Adventures was probably my proudest achievement of the year, review-wise. Rife with information to work off of, and a humorous piece on Tiny Toon's video games, plus parallel to an Animaniacs video game, this was one I loved working on just as much as I loved watching it. It also felt good to watch it after never giving it its due when the hub reran it like mad, as I was mostly focused on Animaniacs, which is one of my favorite shows really of all time. And it's what I saw more of than Tiny Toons.
Belly kills me.
It was a show I fell in love with, and was sort of bummed when it was over because of how much fun I had making the review and watching the show as a whole. Plus, where else are you going to learn that one of the animation studios for the show had also worked on Lupin the Third?
I know what y'all think I am. Take me for some kind of fool. Hurry up, quicker!
Anyway, it was also the first TV show review where I split the opinion piece into two, starting with a rundown of the main characters before then going into the opinion itself. And as of right now, the latest to go through an episode countdown when compared to Ed, Edd and Eddy, where I just did one episode for time constraints. It then closed with a remembrance of those we lost in 2021 and early 2022, all to Aerosmith's I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, because Saints Row 4 was on the brain back then. And is one of the last few episodes to close out with a licensed song. Afterwards, I then covered this. Pee-wee's Big Adventure. A childhood classic, an uproarious romp through and through, and a fun review to do following the Tiny Toon Adventures video, which again went past the 1 hour mark.
That's big like a shogun!
This review is essentially everything it is. A quick and easy video to get done with no hiccups, while still having the fixings of what these reviews are about, which is to inform you of the significance and history of the film, while also offering my thoughts on said film and some humor thrown in there for good measure. This includes explaining that Pollyanna, which was a film that Paul Rubens had originally modeled the Pee Wee Herman film after before it became what it was a wholesome Disney film. Not Maniac, Death Wish, or some sex comedy starring Ash Ketchum and some girl clad in her underwear, such as
Would you do this for me? Oh God, yes!
which would have been accompanied by Stairway to Heaven during the sex scene.
No stairway. Denied.
It also contained a tease of a potential idea for a video that I had started work on, but sadly never finished, and as of right now, hasn't seen the light of day in its base form because I was never satisfied with it. Not to mention various crap happening in November. But even so, it was still a fun video, which came complete with a Tim Burton fan montage set to Tom Petty's Don't Do Me Like That, and concluding with Motley Crue's Home Sweet Home, one of my favorite songs by the band. It was also a rather optimistic video that showed hope for Pee-wee potentially having another cinematic adventure, or even just another adventure with him as a whole, due to how endearing Pee-wee has remained after all this time. But following Paul Rubens' death last year, that dream came crashing down like a garbage truck being dropped off the Empire State Building. So that ultimately wasn't meant to be.
Don't cry, damn it.
Anyway, on to the next subject. This was something I didn't cover in the Tiny Toons video due to time constraints, so I opted to make it its own video, as it also had a production story behind it, so it was enough to cover for a full film review. This was something that came after a My Hero Academia video game idea video I had thought up, which aside from featuring a what-if scenario with the voice cast, with some things aging poorly due to Justin Roiland's controversy piling up like a landfill, and the deaths of Kevin Conroy, James McCaffrey, and Rachel Lillis.
Yeah, I have nothing but tragedy to tell today.
That video did provide the first instance of me using video clips in the video for humor's sake, which would soon become a staple for other videos to come, including the reviews. And for Tiny Toon Adventures, How I Spent My Vacation, for which I called it How I Spent My Summer Vacation because that's what I remembered it as, it was the first review to deploy video clips, which included Dude You Haven't Played This Game's Kabuki Quantum Fighter review, and Metal Jesus Rocks' NES Hidden Gems Part 2 video, which I used when I mentioned Bobby's World, and as an ending stinger, respectively. As I wanted to do that for the end of the Tiny Toon Adventures review, but didn't because, again, it ran the same length as Lady and the Tramp. This one was also fun to do because of how, with my new appreciation for the show, it helped me really look forward to covering the film, and reminded me of the special time when things, to me, were the greatest moments of my life that I cherish dearly. And I really wish to share with all of you in more ways than one. It also became the first review to use video game music, with the credits featuring the theme from Super Mario 64, and would soon set the template for what would come soon. A trend that continued in the next video. The first 40th anniversary video I did, Tron was one where I did for the joy and appreciation that I felt when watching it, in addition to having a lot of material to work with. This was the first review to start using video game music during the voiceovers, as all previous reviews used no music whatsoever and were relegated toward the end, especially with Tiny Toon Adventures, How I Spent My Vacation, which used the theme of Super Mario 64 during the end credits. This wasn't the first video to use video game music during the voiceover, as part 2 of a Digimon box set unboxing and retrospective had music during that voiceover. And in my Star Wars prequel trilogy videos, I did use music for the opening monologues of those, as I had mentioned in the 2021 Reflections video. I won't go over all the music that was used in in these videos, but all I can say is this featured music from Neo Turf Masters, Nights in the Dreams, and Conker's Bad Fur Day at certain points, and probably had some Donkey Kong country music, which is a staple of these videos. The Tron review also had the Tim Curry SPACE bit from Command & Conquer Red Alert 3 during a segment, and a clip of Blazing Saddles at one point. So, plenty of continuing trends here in terms of using video clips, not to mention being the last review to use a licensed copyrighted song. In this case, I chose to use Journey's Lights, due to it being one of my favorite songs by the band, and also because I didn't use it for the final version of my review for Gladiator, and because I didn't have the soundtrack for Tron. Hopefully that gets fixed sometime in the future. It was a pretty fun review overall, and it was fun to talk about how innovative it was in terms of computer-generated imagery. Now for the next segment. In 2022, we finally got Clerks 3 following a cancellation and a draft that was changed following Kevin Smith's near-fatal heart attack, resulting in a completely different movie overall. So with that in mind, I chose to review the very first Clerks, and share just how risky the film was, as it had a low budget and was made by someone who was making his first movie ever. In this case, Kevin Smith.
No ticket.
From the original ending, to the original version of the funeral scene, to the usage of clips from the film in all their uncensored glory, I didn't know how to put the bleeps in yet. This was a review that was perfect to work on because of how much passion I had for the movie, having watched it sometime during high school. And really, now that it's 30 years old as of the time of recording this, it's still hilarious now. And you really should watch the movie, and the review for it as well. Oh, and it had an ending stinger too.
Ooh, Navy SEALs!
And now we go from a movie that's 30 in 2024 to one that is 45 in 2024. The Warriors was a film I had always had on the radar, but hadn't had the chance to watch it due to wanting to see it in its base form, versus the director's cut that had been released since. Thankfully, I found the theatrical cut at a Goodwill one day, alongside the soundtrack for Empire of the Sun, albeit in its original pressing, as opposed to the La La Land's limited edition that has a lot more tracks. But, hey, still a good purchase either way. Moving on, The Warriors was a great review to do, especially since it was the first 1970s film to be covered following Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and was also a film I was rather fascinated with after watching it when I found it at that particular Goodwill that fateful day. It had a rich production history that was fun to cover, had a rather interesting tidbit about how Gulf and Western owned Sega at one point, and they owned Paramount Pictures at the time, and these days, Paramount is responsible for the distribution of the Sonic the Hedgehog films. And it was also the first instance of me using Dreams from Nights into Dreams, which in certain cases is either used for a passionate speech or for the end, as we will see. It was a good one. The only thing I didn't do was use this clip from All That, which is of Coach Cretan entering the classroom going,
Warriors, come out to play!
or this particular clip.
Vodka, come out to play. Come out How did he get here from Hawaii? Vodka, get out of here, you hobo. Ow!
But overall, I can dig it. And I'm sure you can dig this next one, too. My favorite film of the last decade, Get Out is so far the only film I've reviewed that wasn't made within the last 20 to 40 years. and also marked the first horror film to be covered on Halloween, in contrast to previous years, which involved something related to Halloween or horror in the loosest of senses. And from how far back the production dated to how its social commentary is still topical right now, this was a great film to cover. And don't fret, as there may be more films that were made sometime recently, or somewhere in the last decade, that could be covered on the show, hopefully. This one used plenty of Resident Evil 2 music, but sadly I didn't use this particular clip.
I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
It also featured a shout out to a man named Sharpie during the end credits, congratulating him for completing his Sega Saturn challenge. And Ace has told me that I must tell you to go check him out on Twitch, where he is doing his Sega Dreamcast challenge. And on YouTube, you can see the previous challenges he has gone through, which you should go see because boosting people's reputations is something we like to do here quite a bit. But yeah, get out, go out, and watch it, please. And to wrap up the year, following a November break and a scrap video I had filmed but never finished, I covered Jingle All the Way, a return to a normal Christmas film, as opposed to Batman Returns, which was an alternative Christmas film, similar to Die Hard and probably Edward Scissorhands. With plenty of clips from the film, 90s nostalgia wrapped in a box, a fact about Joe Pesci almost playing Sinbad's character, and one of the best screams to ever be put to celluloid. This was a blast, and I'm glad I covered the film because that review makes me smile because of how enjoyable the film was. It also makes it the first Arnold Schwarzenegger film I have covered so far, and hopefully I will be able to do more in the future in time. This one also closed with Dreams Dreams from Nights into Dreams, as most of these reviews usually closed out the year with this song, especially in recent years. So don't be surprised if it suddenly happens at the end of this year as well. And yeah, that was 2022 in film reviews. As you can tell, I really had a lot of passion for those, and I really did like making these videos, and I hope you go to check them out because I find those to be my proudest works, especially the Tiny Toon Adventures review, because that's probably my favorite one to do out of all of them. That was in February. That was the first video I did that year. But hey, sometimes the first one you do is the best one you do. As is sometimes the case. And so, with that, I will catch you later. I'll see you probably when I talk about 2023 in film reviews, because, well, I mean, what else am I going to do? Anyway, bye-bye. You take care.
rap.